February. Hi, it's Kylie and welcome back to another book video. These are definitely the most popular videos on my page. It's great for me because I love books. I am going to be counting down my favorite books that I have read in 2020 from every month. And I'm going to pick one book from every month that was my favorite and just kind of talk about it. It is December right now, so it's still 2020, so I will not be talking about this month. But if you must know, I'm currently reading Daughter of No Worlds, and it is so good so far. I have read 71 out of 75 books this year for my reading challenge, and I have had some great books this year, and I am just so excited to share them with you guys. So let's start it off with January. January, the new year, I was so excited for my new year of reading, and I started off with the best book series, like seriously still one of my favorites of all time, and it is the MindF series. I can't pick just one book out of the whole series that was my favorite. It's only like 150 pages each book, and you just fly through all books. I believe there's 5 books in total, and they're all incredible. These books are about Lana Myers, and she is just your average girl serial killer, and she meets an FBI profiler in a coffee shop and they hit it off. However, he is currently tracking down a serial killer that he does not know is his new girlfriend. She is incredibly smart, and the books just keep you hooked the entire time. I was driving back from South Carolina and I made my sister read to me in the car because I needed to know what would happen next. If you're a fan of Criminal Minds, pick up this series. Seriously. I definitely recommend it. If this is one series that you get out of this entire video, I will be happy. Moving on to February, I have From Lukov with Love. And this was my very first Mariana Zapata book. And when people say that she's a slow burn girly, they're not lying. This book is an ice skating book about 2 ice skaters, and it's kind of enemies to lovers. They have to become partners, and the girl hates the guy basically, and is very jealous of all his success. They bicker the whole time. They have to learn to cooperate. It's about partner skating. I loved this book just because I was reading it at the same time that the Winter Olympics were out, and so I was literally watching figure skating and then reading about it, and then I would just picture the characters were the ones skating. I think I literally have a video of me at a bar with figure skating on in the background, and I'm like about to start crying because I'm just thinking of the people from this book. If you like sports, romance, this is all you need. Again, this one is not very spicy at all. It's slow burn. It's more about the story and the people, but it is about professional ice skaters. And I love it. There was one scene where she gets injured or sick and he has to take care of her. And I love those scenes. Those are probably my favorite. So definitely recommend. All I remember is that I just simply didn't want this book to end. And that being slow burn is saying a lot, because normally you're just like, come on, let's get to the part where they're in love. But not this one. I loved all their tension and their angst and their witty little snappy banter. Next up for March, I have Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This definitely got me back into YA fantasy, and I am so excited that I chose this series because I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. It is superhero based, and so basically it is about 2 people, Nova and Adrian. Nova is a supervillain, Adrian is a superhero, and Nova must go undercover with Adrian and join his team to try and take them down from the inside. There were some great plot twists in this book, and I love anytime someone has to go undercover. It's just gonna do it for me, you know? For April, if you know me, you should see this coming. It is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. Look at this fatty. Yes, definitely a Sarah J. Maas fan. I just love her characters that she builds and the worlds that she builds. If you've heard that this is Zootopia, it is. It is Zootopia for supernatural creatures. I think I loved this book so much because of the main character. Bryce is so funny in this book, and I just think she would be me. I want to be her. Spoiler alert, maybe skip over this part if you don't want to know how it begins. I'm just gonna say how it starts, but it starts with a really gruesome murder of her best friends. This poor girl used to be this big party girl, like doing all these drugs, going out, and then this murder happens when she's out, and her life just kind of takes a turn. So basically the rest of the book is them trying to solve the murders, but I would definitely recommend reading this after you've read other Sarah J Maas books. It's just gonna help you blend more seamlessly into her worlds that she builds, especially in this book. And the second book, the ending, I'm not even gonna touch on that. January, February, March, April, May. Next up for May, I have There Will Come a Darkness by Kathy Rosepool. If you like character-driven novels, like Six of Crows type vibes, this is a book for you. It is a fantasy series. It is about five? It is about 5 different characters. To give you a brief insight in the world, there used to be prophets that would tell the future, and they died out a while ago. But the last prophet said that there would be one more at the end of the world who comes, and basically he's going to save the end of the world. There's one more prophet, and between the 5 people, we have no idea who the prophet is, but we know it's one of them. This is a really good start to a fantasy series. It's set everything up really well. There's sisters, there's someone that is murdering people, and they leave like a pale handprint on their victims. There is a prince of a place that was taken over. I saw this book as just a very good introduction. I actually have not read the rest of this series yet, which is very unlike me. But it was because after reading Crescent City, I wanted to go back and read all the Throne of Glass books. So, yeah, because I'm very much a mood reader. But I am definitely going to get back to this series. If you like a little mystery, if you like character-driven novels, There Will Come a Darkness. Read it. Now, for June, this shouldn't come as much as a surprise since I said I was rereading the whole Throne of Glass series. But in June, I was reading Empire of Storms, which is probably, if not my favorite, my second favorite of the whole Throne of Glass series, and probably one of my favorite books of all time. This is the book that you can tandem read with Tower of Dawn. And this book, it's so good. Just, if you've read it, you know the giant plot twist at the end. That's like the worst part. But in this book, you really get to see the main girl's powers finally really come out, and all her scheming. There's a lot of scheming. I don't want to spoil anything because it's like the 5th book or 6th book in that series, and it's really deep into it, but I can't not say that that was my favorite book of June because it's my favorite book of all time, maybe, possibly. So, read Throne of Glass, okay? Read it. It takes a couple books to get good, but then it gets really good. Okay. Next up is actually the book I read July 1st, and that is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is a new release that had just come out when I read it, and I had just previously read People We Meet on Vacation, so I was really excited to get into this one. And Book Lovers.
Wait, is this fucking play about us?
I don't normally leave really long reviews on Goodreads. It's usually just like one sentence. But this one I did, and so I'm just going to read a part of it. This was one of my favorite quotes. Maybe love shouldn't be built on a foundation of compromises, but maybe it can't exist with them either. Not the kind that forces 2 people into shapes they don't fit in, but the kind that loosens their grips, always leaves room to grow. Compromises that say, there will be a U-shaped space in my heart, and if your shape changes, I will adapt. This was such a cute romance book. I just loved that it was a little different. If you have seen any rom-com, you know that main character that goes out of their small town and they meet some small town hottie and they're so down to earth, and that shrill woman back in New York who's all focused on her job, he's like, I'm gonna break up with her for this farmer. Basically, this story is told from the perspective of the woman left behind in New York. It was also just very extremely funny. Nora is a literary agent, and then Charlie is an editor that she's avoided ever since they had this horrible run-in where she had just gotten dumped on their first meeting and he was being an ass and judging her, and then basically they end up later in this small town, which sounds like the rom-com, right? But they're both very New York people. It is just a cute little rom-com in a book. It's like a reverse rom-com, if that makes sense. Next up is August, and this actually surprised me because I was looking through my Goodreads, and it is the last book of the Zodiac series, the Zodiac Academy series, and that series is currently 7 books, so that means I read like 7 books in July, or like 6 books in July before getting to this last one. But this entire series is what I'm counting as my favorite. It is definitely a goofy series. Like, it's a fantasy series, but it's also, I don't know, it's like, how do I describe it? It's about 2 twins, and they basically find out that they are these lost princesses in this other world, but they're the heirs at the school, and they're set to inherit, basically, ruling now that the ruling family was killed off, or thought to, but the girls were sent away for their own protection. So now that the girls come back, the heirs are pissed off because they're supposed to be rulers, and they don't want people who have never grown up in their world to be ruling them. It is very much a bully romance series, and I went into that and I was like, oh, they'll be snarky and mean to each other, but they'll secretly like each other. No. Prepare to get your heart broken like 50,000 times. This has had the most amount of plot twists in any series I've ever read, I think, and it is a roller coaster. So I definitely recommend it if you're buckled in. But Zodiac Academy 8 is coming out, I think, in a couple days, and 7 was the most brutal ending of all of them, and I'm scared. So scared to go into this next book, but fingers crossed. Going into September, I have to say that These Hollow Vows was probably my favorite read out of that month. I didn't read that much that month, and I did really enjoy this book, and it was really anticipated for me because I had seen it everywhere at this point and everyone was reading it. It's another fairy-based book. If you don't know what that is, look up like fae mythology. And it's about Bree. She's that main girl here, and she is human and basically hates the fae, thinks they're evil, deceitful liars, and basically is, I don't want to say she's a slave, but she's really, really poor, and she works for this family, basically, and gets screwed over all the time. Her sister ends up getting sold off to the fae, and so Bree's freaking out. She loves her sister more than anything in the world, ends up sneaking into fairy because the prince is looking for a human bride, because it is hard for the fae to procreate, basically, and they need a human bride to carry on the line. So she sneaks in to win the prince's heart. However, there is a guy there from the human world that was like her best friend and her crush, and he's there. I don't want to give anything else away, but everything is not what it seems. I also wrote a decently long Goodreads review about this book. So I'm going to read that because I never put my whole punani into this stuff. From the start, this book seemed like your average YA fantasy about a fae and a girl with powers who didn't know she had them. It felt predictable. It wasn't until about halfway through that this book really hooked me. Yes, it was predictable in small parts, but it somehow always kept me guessing about who to trust and what wasn't being said, that it really put me in the main character's shoes. And the ending twist. Holy crap. Yes, I remember the ending twist. I know a lot of people don't like love triangles. There is a bit of a love triangle in this book, but it is quickly resolved, I would say, by book 2. So give it a little chance. Yeah, there's only 2 books in the series too, so it's a nice, fun little fantasy read. Next up for October, we have The Inheritance Games. Again, a very popular book, and I wish I had gotten to it sooner, but I'm happy I read it this year. I was waiting for the final gambit to come out before starting this, and so I just got to read all 3 in a row. I would say the first book is probably the best book in the series, maybe the second book. The third book I feel like wasn't needed, or they could have wrapped it up in the second book. But if you fall in love with the characters like I did, then you're gonna wanna read it. This is about Avery Grahams, and she basically gets this message that she's in this billionaire's will, and she doesn't know what she's getting. And so she basically has to go to the reading of the will, and she finds out that she has left everything. However, this billionaire has 2 daughters and 4 grandsons and a couple other people, and they're all pissed off. If you really like riddles and games, this is the book for you, because I really like riddles, and it's fun just to try and figure out why this is happening, and that's exactly what Avery is trying to find out. Why me? It's when she has never met this man before in her life. However, there's people trying to kill her. She has to have like a full security team. She's now the most rich teenager in the world, and she's covered in press. And this family specifically was obsessed, like the grandpa that died was obsessed with riddles and games. And her and one of the grandsons end up finding a clue, and it kind of starts a whole ball rolling of trying to solve why Avery got all the money. It's very YA, I'm just letting you know. Like, it's not, there's no spice, but it's good. Finally, we have reached November, and for November, my favorite book was definitely Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This book had just come out, so it was brand new, but it had blown up everywhere. It's a hockey romance and figure skating. I think you're catching a theme here with me with the figure skating for some reason. There was a lot of complaints about this book that people were saying it was too long. However, I didn't want it to end, so it wasn't too long for me. But it was a very long romance book, I will give it that. It is at a university, and someone ends up ruining one of the rinks at the school, and there's 2 rinks, and so now the hockey team and the figure skating team have to share a rink. The girl is very serious about her skating, and so she's pissed. She doesn't want to like the hockey players, the hockey team, but they all eventually kind of grow on her. I don't want to give it away, but it was a really cute sports romance book if you're looking for that. If you've ever read The Deal, which is another hockey romance, it is similar to that, but I actually think I liked Icebreaker better. So that sums up my favorite books of 2022 from each month so far. December, I have a feeling it's going to be Daughter of No Worlds because I just started on this series and it's already really good. I do, however, think I'm going to be reading a Christmas romance book, but it's very popular right now and it's getting 5 stars from everybody, so that could be a series contender. And please add me on Goodreads, add me on Instagram, keep up with me, not the Kardashians. But if you have any books to recommend based on my favorites, please do so in the comments. I'm also going to be listing all of my favorites in the description if you guys want to go check them out. And my Goodreads will be there as well. If you want more book related videos, please drop me a comment, drop me a like, drop me a subscribe. I really do appreciate every interaction that I get. I hope everyone has an amazing Christmas and New Year's, and I will see you next year probably.